Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up because what President Donald J. Trump just did has sent shockwaves through America, and Ilhan Omar has gone dead silent. This is the moment nobody thought would actually happen. Not the media, not the Democrats, not the Minnesota political machine that has been insulating itself for years behind layers of activists, nonprofits, and carefully crafted talking points. But late last night, under the sharp white lights of the White House briefing room, President Trump stepped forward, pulling the pin on a political grenade, and he dropped it straight onto Minnesota's doorstep. Federal investigators have now confirmed what whistleblowers have been shouting into the void for years. Money, your money, taxpayer money, was pumped through these fake nonprofit networks in Minnesota, laundered through shadowy overseas remittance channels, and then siphoned directly into the pockets of al-Shabaab, an al-Qaeda-linked terror faction that is operating in Somalia. And guess whose political orbit sits dead center in the middle of this explosion? Ilhan Omar. That's right, guys. The same Ilhan Omar who spent her entire career calling Trump a racist, painting conservatives as extremists, and lecturing everyday Americans on morality and compassion. Well, today, folks, the spotlight finally turns back on her. And what it reveals is darker, it's deeper, and far more explosive than anyone expected, because President Trump, he didn't just respond. He unleashed the most aggressive crackdown Minnesota has seen in decades. TPS protections revoked, fraud networks exposed, federal audits activated. I mean, a massive criminal dragnet is tightening around the very community Omar claims to represent. Now, here's the craziest part. The media still won't touch the story, but we will. So today we're exposing exactly what investigators uncovered, how Minnesota's welfare pipeline reached all the way to a terrorist organization, why Ilhan Omar has suddenly gone silent, and how Trump's emergency order just flipped the entire political landscape upside down. Guys, this isn't left versus right anymore. This is America versus corruption, America versus fraud, America versus terror. And tonight, President Trump made one thing brutally clear. The cover-ups stop now. Hit the like button and subscribe. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the moment that this country gasped wasn't during a rally, a press leak, or a tweet. It happened at 11:42 p.m. when President Donald J. Trump stepped into the White House briefing room with a folder under his arms and a look that said that the storm had arrived. What he announced was nothing short of historic. Immediate termination of TPS protections for Somali nationals directly tied to flagged remittance hubs, nonprofits under federal investigation, or financial networks now considered high-risk conduits. The room froze. Reporters didn't even shuffle their papers. I mean, because this wasn't symbolic. This wasn't political theater. This was the president of the United States formally declaring that Minnesota had become a national security emergency. And on top of that, the cover-ups end tonight. So here's where the ground finally begins to shake like an earthquake. Federal investigators, after months of sealed warrants, midnight raids, and forensic audits, they confirmed that Minnesota's welfare programs were bled dry through these fake meal counts, phantom children, counterfeit disability claims, and manufactured paperwork across two major networks: Feeding Our Future and Housing Stabilization Services. Over $250 million just vanished. 77 individuals were charged, 56 guilty pleas, and the paper trail, let's just say it didn't end in Minneapolis. Investigators traced the money through informal Somali hawala networks. These are channels that are known for bypassing banks and avoiding detection. And once those dollars hit Somali territory, they entered regions where al-Shabaab forcibly taxes every incoming transactions, meaning American tax dollars, your tax dollars, helped enrich al-Qaeda-linked terror groups. Now, just let that sink in for a second, okay? Every time a fraudster in Minnesota submitted a fake meal count, every time a nonprofit reported children who didn't exist, every time someone pocketed taxpayer cash and shoved it into a remittance office, al-Shabaab got a cut. Not because the fraudsters intentionally supported terrorism, but because Somalia's terror factions control the territory where these transfers land. They tax every wire, every remittance, every dollar crossing into their zones. So while hardworking Americans were struggling to buy groceries in 2021 and 2022, a terror group overseas was getting richer off the theft. Federal analysts put it bluntly: the largest indirect funder of al-Shabaab may now be Minnesota taxpayers. This is how deep it goes, guys. Now, if you spent your whole life taking care of others, isn't it time someone took care of you? This is why I partner with Chapter. They treat your Medicare plan like it matters, because it does. Now, one of our viewers said, for once, I actually felt like someone was on my side. So let me ask you, don't you deserve a team that protects you? Now, most people already found theirs at the phone number at the bottom of the screen right there, or they're visiting askchapter.org/Ron. That phone number again is 909-563-8279. And Carrie Mask, one of our viewers, said Chapter just saved me $3,500 by changing plans. Wow, that is huge. And this here, guys, this is where the political world exploded, because sitting right in the epicenter of the fraud's geography, relationships, and beneficiaries is Ilhan Omar. This is the congresswoman who built her brand attacking Trump, law enforcement, and pretty much anyone who questioned her district's policies. Now, Omar filmed a promotional video at Safari Restaurant. This was a business later implicated in feeding fraud operations. Two individuals tied to the scandal later donated to her campaign. And it gets worse, guys. The bill that she proudly sponsored, the 2020 Meals Act, dramatically expanded the very programs that were exploited in the scam. And while she denies involvement, the optics are devastating. I mean, the fraud happened in her backyard, under her watch, supported by networks aligned with her political coalition. And all of a sudden, she's silent. You gotta wonder, is Ilhan Omar guilty as well? But Ilhan Omar isn't the only one that's sitting in the blast zone. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz is facing a political firestorm of his own. Documents show that his administration received repeated warnings as early as 2020, whistleblower reports, audit flags, internal memos detailing massive irregularities inside childcare, housing, and food assistance programs. And what did he do? He didn't do anything. Nothing. No investigations, no shutdowns, no safeguards. Conservatives now argue that this wasn't incompetence. This was collusion through negligence, because every ignored warning let the fraud scale higher, bolder, and even more destructive right up until federal authorities had to intervene. Now, the entire GOP delegation from Minnesota is demanding a federal probe into Walz's inaction. And now with President Trump cracking down, the shield protecting Minnesota's political class is shattering. Now, ladies and gentlemen, listen close, because what I'm about to tell you could reshape how you view America's clean energy future. Artificial intelligence has stopped being a future story. In fact, it is a right now mega trend backed by $471+ billion in private funding, running on data centers that never sleep and absolutely cannot run on intermittent power. Now, according to the IEA, global electricity demand from AI, crypto, and data infrastructure, it's set to double by 2026. This is the equivalent of Japan's entire electricity consumption. NVIDIA, Microsoft backs Anthropic in a $30 billion bid for AI scale, with option to secure up to 1 gigawatt of additional computer power. The U.S. forges an $80 billion nuclear partnership with Westinghouse, Cameco, and Brookfield to power AI and secure energy dominance. Google and Microsoft are reviving dormant nuclear reactors. Now, this isn't preparation. This is panic wrapped as planning. And at the heart of this new American energy boom, nuclear power. And what fuels nuclear power? That's right, uranium, plain and simple. Now, today's sponsor might be holding the keys to that problem. So stick with me to the very end, because what I'm about to share with you folks, this is flying completely under Wall Street's radar for now. Shout out to the sponsor of today's video, disseminated on behalf of Foremost Clean Equals Energy Ltd. on the NASDAQ under ticker symbol FMST. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you AI is consuming massive amounts of power, with Anthropic alone committing billions to scale its compute, making uranium-fueled nuclear energy more critical than ever. How tech giants like Google, Amazon, and Meta are scrambling to lock up every last pound of uranium to power their AI servers, and how one company, Foremost Clean Energy, ticker symbol FMST on the NASDAQ, is sitting at the center of this energy surge, actively drilling high-grade uranium and gold lithium targets and positioning itself for major discovery. Folks, uranium is the new oil. If the U.S. wants a true energy-independent future, one that doesn't rely on Russia, China, or Middle Eastern suppliers, domestic uranium production isn't optional, it's essential. So let's talk about Foremost Clean Energy, ticker symbol FMST, and why some believe that they're in the best place on earth to feed Trump's nuclear push. Now, Foremost is a junior uranium explorer with a big advantage. They've secured 45 claims covering over 330,000 acres right in Canada's legendary Athabasca Basin, the so-called Saudi Arabia of uranium, and one of the richest uranium districts in the world. They are actively drilling to expand its high-grade uranium resources. Now, on November 17, 2025, FMST announced the completion of a 2,695-meter diamond drill program at Murphy Lake South. This is one of its flagship assets, returning intersections that included elevated radioactivity, graphitic fault structures, significant hydrothermal alteration, evidence of uranium-bearing hydrothermal fluids, and reactive basement structures, features that collectively indicate a highly prospective uranium-bearing system. Now, on top of their large uranium portfolio, FMST also holds gold and lithium properties. In November, FMST announced first assay results from its first 4 holes in its 2025 drilling program at the 100% owned Jean Lake gold lithium property in Manitoba. Multiple shallow, high-grade gold intercepts along the Valkyrie trend, most notably 10.7 grams per ton gold over 5.6 meters from 100.5 meters, including 82 grams per ton gold over 0.7 meters, 34.2 grams per ton gold over 0.8 meters, within 9 grams per ton gold over 3.5 meters, all occurring within 100 meters of the surface. These latest findings build on earlier discoveries, and they suggest a growing near-surface mineralized gold system, reinforcing Foremost exploration model. With drilling still ongoing, further drill results can be expected. And the company isn't going at it alone either. Their biggest shareholder is Denison Mines, one of the top uranium developers in North America with a $2 billion market cap. Now, Denison owns roughly 19% of Foremost shares. Denison's own CEO even sits on Foremost's board. It's kind of like having an NFL Hall of Famer coaching your rookie season. The roadmap is already in place. And let's not forget, in uranium, location is everything. The closer you are to proven mines like Cameco's Cigar Lake and McArthur River, the higher your odds of hitting pay dirt. And just think about the big picture. AI is sucking up power like never before. Some reports are saying that data centers could swallow 12% of all U.S. electricity by 2028. For example, Anthropic has committed $30 billion to Microsoft Azure compute capacity, locking in massive long-term cloud resources, while NVIDIA is investing up to $10 billion in the company. Now, this isn't just about money. Anthropic plans to scale Claude using up to 1 gigawatt of NVIDIA's cutting-edge hardware, Grace Blackwell and Vera Rubin systems, demanding continuous, reliable power. That kind of energy load is precisely why domestic nuclear, fueled by U.S.-produced uranium, is becoming a critical backbone of America's AI-driven future. Now, Meta, Google, Amazon, they're already buying gigawatts of nuclear capacity to feed their server farms. Meanwhile, Sprott Physical Uranium Trust is hoarding physical uranium to tighten supply even further, all while President Trump's orders guarantee America's uranium must be mined there, not bought from Moscow or Beijing. So here's what makes FMST even more interesting. It's sitting at a market cap of under $35 million, while many peers with less ground trade at $100 million or more. They are fully funded for this year's drilling with extra cash in the bank. And as a kicker, they even own over 55,000 acres of lithium-rich ground in Canada, giving you bonus exposure to battery metals with zero extra dilution. So in a world where energy security, AI, and clear baseload power are colliding, a tiny overlooked uranium explorer with heavyweight backing could catch Wall Street sleeping. This is why Foremost Clean Energy, ticker symbol FMST, is worth watching like a hawk as President Trump's nuclear push plays out over the next few months and years. So with domestic uranium demand surging, FMST is strategically positioned to explore the critical nuclear fuel that will power America's energy independence. So if you're curious, I'll drop the links in the description down below so that you can read their investor deck, check out their recent drill news, and decide for yourself. Now, just remember, guys, this is not investment advice. I am not a financial advisor. I'm just sharing what I'm seeing. Now, always do your own due diligence before making any investment decisions. Investing in junior explorers presents high risks. But mark my words, uranium is back, and if Trump gets his way, domestic explorers like FMST could be front and center in America's new nuclear age. And make no mistake, the federal response isn't symbolic. The Trump administration has now classified Minnesota as a risk zone for welfare leakage, citing the unprecedented scale of stolen funds and the terror taxation networks that are happening overseas. A federal brief outlines sweeping new oversight over every nonprofit receiving federal dollars in the state. No more blind approvals, no more rubber stamp budgets. Every remittance channel flagged as high risk, will face stricter reporting, monitoring, and audit requirements, especially those that are linked to the territories where Al-Shabaab collects revenue. President Trump put it bluntly, no American program will continue if it even indirectly fuels hostile organizations. This isn't just an investigation anymore. This is a national security operation targeting the heart of Minnesota's corrupted system. Now, here's where the political ground really split open. President Trump officially terminated TPS protections for Somali nationals connected directly or indirectly to the fraud network under investigation. This is not a mass sweep. This is targeted, precise, and backed by federal law. The White House cited material support risk, noting that even unintentional financial benefit to a terror-linked region, this qualifies for immediate TPS removal. Roughly 1,000 individuals were flagged for review, and many have already received their formal notices. Trump stressed transparency and legality every step of the way. But the message couldn't be clearer. If your financial networks overlap with corruption or terror-taxed channels, the United States will not grant you protected status. The era of blind leniency is over. And perhaps the most chilling and telling development, Ilhan Omar's silence. I mean, normally she fires back within minutes. Statements, tweets, press releases, full-blown counterattacks. But after Trump's announcement, her office issued 2 words: no comment, no outrage, no deflection, no fiery accusations, nothing. Conservative commentators immediately noticed this, calling it the quietest day in Ilhan Omar's political life. Even CNN speculated that her team is in internal crisis mode, scrambling to understand the scope of the federal investigation and how close it gets to her allies, donors, and district networks. Silence in Washington is rarely innocence, let me tell you, okay? This is preparation, this is strategy, this is damage control, and for the first time, Omar seems unsure whether speaking will make things worse or expose things that she just can't afford to answer. Now, here's a data point that really blew federal analysts' minds. Between 2020 and 2023, Somali remittance flows out of Minnesota surged to levels no one could explain. And this is based on the reported incomes of the individuals sending the money. In fact, some senders shoved more overseas transfers than total annual earnings. Now, this is a red flag even for seasoned investigators, okay? Many funds pass through informal clearinghouses, systems designed to avoid traditional banking oversight. And when those dollars hit Somalia, they enter territories where Al-Shabaab controls checkpoints, banks, and financial infrastructure. The surge perfectly mirrors the years that the Minnesota fraud rings were operating at full speed. Analysts are now saying that the correlation is so tight, it's impossible to treat as a coincidence. And so this is where President Trump moved from reaction to doctrine. He called it a zero-tolerance national reset. Now, others called it a political nuke. I mean, you call it what you want. But Trump declared that the United States will no longer operate under what he labeled this post-American politics, a worldview that protects non-citizens more than citizens, funds broken systems, and allows foreign networks to plunder American programs without consequence. So instead, Trump framed this crackdown as the purest form of America First, protecting taxpayers, safeguarding national security, and shutting down any program, even a federal one, if it indirectly aids hostile groups. Now, in his own words, he said, no enemy of the United States will ever benefit from American generosity again. And with that, the entire political battlefield shifted overnight. But the ripple effect doesn't stop with Ilhan Omar. The spotlight is now turning toward Minnesota's broader Somali political leadership, including rising figures like Omar Fate, the self-described socialist who nearly unseated Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey. Now, Fate campaigned as a champion for the same nonprofit networks now under investigation. Several of his closest political allies, they had direct associations with organizations that were caught up in the welfare scandal. Conservative analysts, they are arguing that Omar and Fate represent the political wing of an ecosystem where activists, nonprofits, and local power brokers blurred lines between advocacy and corruption. And now with Trump's crackdown in full force, these figures face questions they never had to answer publicly, questions that could reshape Minnesota politics for a generation. And if you really want to understand how this entire machine operated, look no further than the nonprofits themselves. I mean, what should have been community support organizations somehow morphed into slush funds for fraudsters. Feeding Our Future reported millions of non-existent meals for children who never showed up. Housing stabilization services claimed disability cases with no medical verification. Safari Restaurant, later visited by Ilhan Omar in a promotional video, served as a central hub where fraudulent transactions flowed through disguised community programs. Luxury SUVs, overseas condos, designer handbags, all purchased with taxpayer dollars. Some cash was transported physically, stuffed into envelopes, and carried overseas. This wasn't a small scandal. This was a industrialized fraud operation using charity as a camouflage. And so here's why President Trump's actions aren't just legally justified. They're politically explosive in the best possible way for him. So across the nation, voters are furious. Inflation-battered families, groceries skyrocketed, parents struggled to fill their gas tanks to feed their kids. I mean, while criminals in Minnesota siphoned off hundreds of millions that were meant for children, the disabled, and even low-income families, rural voters called it the biggest slap in the face in a decade. Suburban parents say that we're done funding the fraud. Polling now shows overwhelming support even among independents for Trump's crackdown. Americans are united on one issue: stop the theft. And Trump is the only one that's taken bold, direct action while the political establishment's looking the other way. So where does this all go from here? Well, according to federal resources, Minnesota is about to enter its most intense political and legal period in decades. More indictments are coming, not dozens, but waves. The DOJ is reviewing every major welfare program in the state. Nonprofits are lawyering up. Auditors are preparing to comb through years of receipts, transfers, and overseas transactions. Individuals with revoked TPS protections will face formal deportation hearings immediately. And both Ilhan Omar and Governor Tim Walz are expected to be called before federal committees to explain how this fraud flourished under his watch. Minnesota isn't just under investigation, it's under construction. And tonight marks only the beginning. Hey, by the way, guys, if you're one of the real ones who really enjoy what we do here on the channel, you've got to check out the Inner Circle. This is where our true supporters get exclusive access to content that I just can't share here, completely commercial free. It's also the best way to keep this channel going strong. So if you want to be a part of something special, join us over there. Links in the description or in the pinned comment down below.